Hello and welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, that was a very interesting session. Thank you for telling us all of your thoughts and experiences. We're now on to something completely different, as we often are at the Student Hub. And look what I've got here. I have some very, very brainy people in the studio, and I am welcoming Connor and Sarah, who are both PhD students, who are doing something really, really worthwhile. You guys are looking at BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, as a possible cure for Alzheimer's, which is phenomenal. I'm sure that people don't know that you know, we have students like you doing PhDs at the Open University with all your paraphernalia and this, that and the other, doing such important work. So briefly, can you tell us what you're actually doing?
Yeah, so I work with a drugs company that actually make little nanoparticles, because the brain has this fantastic barrier that protects itself. And the problem with this is it protects it, but also stops lots of drugs and treatments actually getting in there. So what our group found were these tiny bits of gold. 2 million of them together only make 1 centimetre, so I can't really make much money off them. We attach something useful to it and we can actually get it into the brain. So our hope is something like BDNF attached onto that and actually get it into the brain and treat something.
Wow. And Sarah, what about you?
Something completely different. I work on a protein aggregation disorder. So when we talk about proteins in a cellular aspect, they're more the workhorses of the cell. They make things happen in the body. And the structure is really important to their function. And during disease states like Alzheimer's and Huntington's, some proteins aren't able to fold correctly and they form big chunks called aggregates in the body. And this is basically what causes cell death. So
we go from that there with my aspect, and we think that the BDNF might be able to not only repair some of those damaged cells because of these protein aggregates, but also help regrow some damaged, some new cells as well in the brain.
Wow. So the protein is obviously the eggs, is it? Are we going to have
Yes.
some? And does this help eating eggs?
Yeah, because
Because, I don't know, there's so much stuff as well, in particular around Alzheimer's, about certain foods to eat and certain things. And this idea, I guess, about things happening that are bad and are having an impact in terms of brain function, and also this idea of plasticity and repair is such a hope. You've definitely got the better straw, I think, Connor, in terms of hope for the human race. Tell us what you've got going on with these eggs, though.
So I'm actually just going to demonstrate how protein aggregates form.
Good.
So this is probably something you've all seen before.
PhD students.
This is what we do in the lab.
Okay. Really?
Well, we're not allowed to eat them afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we going to eat?
I mean, you can if you want. I don't think it will be that appetising.
low carb, high protein diets, we all know that's the thing to do this weather. So.
Okay.
So basically, at the moment, the egg is full of protein.
Right.
And it's all in the right shape.
Okay.
So proteins are strings of amino acids, and they're folded together to have their 3D structure. And when we apply heat and stir it up, that's disgusting.
We're not allowed microwaves in the studio anymore. We've been told.
Yeah, it's not quite Gordon Ramsay, but you know.
I'm not eating that.
No, now that I've stirred it.
Okay, so what's this about?
So when the proteins are in their correct shape, they're nice and clear. When we apply heat, we unravel the 3D structure of the protein, and that can then bump into other unravelled proteins, and bonds can form between them, and you can form these horrible white protein aggregates. And that's essentially what protein aggregates in the body are. Proteins that don't have their correct shape, that have joined other proteins that don't have their correct shape. And this can cause cell death.
And you mentioned before that this was applicable to, Huntington's and Alzheimer's, where you've got these aggregates. So can you tell us a bit about the impact that they have in terms of brain function?
Yeah, so in Alzheimer's disease, the one that we most know of is a thing called amyloid beta, and that's in the brain naturally, and it's normally pumped out in a healthy respect. But as you get older, there is some natural build-up. Now, in Alzheimer's, the case is that we're not 100% sure why this happens, but these proteins stay in the brain, aren't getting cleaned out, they become denatured and they start to stick together. This causes the cells around that area to die. they start misfolding inside themselves. And the regions of the brain that it targets are areas located to memory, and so that's when it's one of the first things that we notice with Alzheimer's is that memory starts to go.
So you've seen these plaques being formed, and the idea is that if you could stop something natural that all of a sudden goes wrong, that the proteins are all of a sudden folding and I guess layering on top of each other and causing something to die by almost suffocating it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if we could stop that, then we would have a cure.
We hope so. I mean, that's the pitch that I'm trying to sell to people to be interested in my research. But again, we need to do all the research behind that, and it's a very long time from trying this on simple cells to actually trying to get this to humans. But that is our ultimate goal. And if this works, the general principle might be that we can not only use this for Alzheimer's, but Parkinson's and Huntington's, and just slightly modify what we attach onto the nanocarrier.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, the research in this area is growing prolifically. I mean, there is such a great, and clearly because it is one of the key conditions, especially in the elderly and ageing population now. So it's a massive issue, and the race is on to try and find a cure. This idea then of plasticity is really hopeful, as I said before. Can you tell us a little bit about that and about how the brain can repair itself?
Yeah, so the brain is an amazing organ. It has this ability to, depending on the stimuli that has been from your eyes and how you're training it, it kind of acts like a muscle and can grow and adapt to it. So one of the best examples is taxi drivers were shown with MRIs that parts of their brain actually changed that was to do with their spatial awareness. And if they had passed the knowledge, which is the big test that London cabbie drivers do, then their brain actually looked different than the average person just from the MRI.
But is this a case of cause and effect? Maybe they were taxi drivers because they could remember things so well.
There is some reasons for that. That might be when you're younger and it's a bit more placid, but there's definitely a possibility that you can see people who had only just passed the knowledge from 2 years to someone who had done it 20 years, an actual size difference in an increase as well.
Okay, well maybe this is why taxi drivers have won things like Mastermind then. They're clearly very intelligent and good. But obviously the sat-nav and thing changes things. So this whole shape and area of research, I guess, in terms of applying this to what you guys are doing, is changing. You've mentioned as well that you're working with drug companies, and arguably, you know, whilst this is a very exciting and sexy area, you're boiling eggs and you're writing grant papers and doing a lot of essentially quite administrative things. So tell us about life as a PhD student and some of the sort of things that you guys get involved with.
Yeah, so I mean, we're part of the OU community, so we are doing fun things with the OU as well, but it's definitely a time-consuming aspect. You do commit your life to this kind of area. You do spend a lot of late nights here and occasionally stay here overnight just to do your experiments.
Well, he does, I don't.
Yeah.
You can use a saucepan.
But the OU has this unique aspect with its PhD students, because in a lot of other universities you would have a lot of teaching requirements because of undergraduate, while here we focus a bit more on the research, but this is also why we like doing these kind of outreach things to just actually tell the people what we're doing.
What's it like for you then doing something completely different? You're not here at late at night, are you not doing so well?
Oh. Well, I'm halfway through my PhD, so please don't ask me that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, a typical day, you spend maybe 6 hours in the lab. I typically use cell lines to look at protein aggregates in. I mainly do sort of fluorescence microscopy, looking at single cells and what's going on in there, and possibly less writing than I should be doing, but it's been really good.
But you're in a different phase, I guess, and like all PhDs have different phases of doing the stuff, writing the stuff, revising the stuff, and there is this whole fluid process. What's it like then? Because clearly you're on campus, you're doing stuff, so you're saying you're part of a community, but equally you're both doing something very, very specific and niche, and with all PhDs, you know, it is a really, really minuscule question that you're trying to feed into the wider area of knowledge. How's that for you?
It feels like you're doing something worthwhile. It feels like, for me personally, my grandmother had Alzheimer's. I saw what that was like through all the stages. So seeing that I'm actually doing something towards that always just helps me move along with what I'm actually doing. And it makes staying here at night a little bit better.
Oh, poor Connor. Let's see, there's a lot of questions on the hot desk. Sophie and HJ, anyone that you want to put to us?
Well, we've got quite a few comments actually,
There's a lot
haven't
going
we?
on. So Sylvia asked about diet and whether your diet can affect, well, she says cure Alzheimer's disease, but is there anything that you can do diet-wise that can maybe prevent it or anything like that?
Well, it's always put forward that basically a healthy diet, there's a lot of different things that we think cause Alzheimer's, but none of it's 100% proven. So there is a small genetic trait, there is other traits. Basically, eat healthy and do exercise, which again links back into BDNF that we discussed before. Have a healthy lifestyle, don't smoke too much, don't drink too much.
Too much.
At all, I think.
Yeah, that might be better, but you still need to have a little bit of fun.
Ella has a question as well.
It also links into something that Sylvia said as well.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's just about if it can be used, it's used in Alzheimer's at the moment, can it be used for any other memory problems or any other brain problems, or is it specifically just for Alzheimer's, all the research that you're doing?
That may have been something that, because the chat happens quite quickly,
was
you
quite
touched on a variety of various neurodegenerative diseases.
So BDNF is nicknamed miracle grow for the brain. So it can cause different areas of the brain to grow and repair itself. So technically, if we get it in there, we could do quite a lot for a number of different disorders. But also what we're doing is the general principle. So if we can attach this and get it in, then maybe we can get another protein that does something similar but more specific to Huntington's or Parkinson's. Then we can try it.
I think Ben has a quick question as well for the couch. He says, if you could have something to aid your research that you currently don't have, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question, Ben.
Ooh.
More money?
Yeah, that would always be good.
Do you think Alzheimer's research is underfunded then?
I think in recent years it's getting better, but I think research in general is quite underfunded. I think we could all do with a lot more money in this kind of area. People are spending too much time writing grants and proposals rather than actually getting to do their own work.
Yeah, no, very common. Any thoughts from you, Sarah?
Well, a lot of these, the big neurodegenerative disorders, they're funded by a lot of charities. So you get a lot more money in for those.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult question to answer about funding.
Yeah, very difficult. And also, you know, there's so much variety in terms of, you know, the stages, I guess, of some of these neurodegenerative diseases. And some things that people are talking about diet, you know, that's a massive area that people are looking at all sorts of berries and cranberries and various things that you can eat. And also various diets where they have higher rates of neurodegenerative diseases as well, which could possibly be related to diet. Going back then to this idea about linking quite specifically with what you guys are doing, because you can't obviously address this whole broader picture, how do you connect with this academic community? What sort of networks are you in? As OU students, obviously that's an important one, but in terms of the academic community, are you going to conferences? Are you writing papers? What sorts of things are you involved with as PhD students in terms of, I guess, disseminating your knowledge and also feeding into to the specific areas you guys are covering?
Yeah, I mainly go to conferences, and we're actually going to one together next month that's funded by the BBSRC and is all about protein folding and protein production in the cells. So that's kind of the main way I really get my research out there.
That's why you're not doing your writing.
Yeah. I'm making
Okay,
posters.
there are a couple of other things I wanted to touch on very, very briefly, and one of them, I guess, is just the point that you've talked about plasticity and this whole idea of learning, which is effectively what people are doing when they're studying. They're exercising their brain and making new connections between certain networks. So as people are learning new subjects, they're doing a lot, which is possibly why they get hungry. But also there are other things that we can do, and we've mentioned diet, but exercise was one that you wanted to touch on as well.
Yes, so there has been a lot of links with BDNF and its levels being increased after exercise. It's most commonly been shown when it's been long aerobic exercise for going for a long jog or doing that rather than any weights or high intensity interval training. But yeah, we see these levels increase, and this thing, again, the miracle growth for the brain, is causing the brain to change and form these new connections. So exercise is great for the brain and definitely better to help you learn.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. I like the miracle growth of the brain. It's just because no one can say brain neurotropic factor, not even me.
And calling it manure or something for the brain doesn't quite work as well.
No, it wouldn't appeal so much, would it? You guys are going to go back to your labs and engage in the chat, aren't you? Because there's a lot of questions. So this is all we've got time for right now in the live session. But do get those questions coming in on the chat. And Connor and Sarah are going to go back to their desks and try and answer as many of them as is possible. Sophie and HJ, any final thoughts?
No, not really. I don't think so. Everyone's still really interested in the actual neurodegenerative disease and things like that, and sort of there's still chat going on, but not many questions that we've got.
But we have taken on board your thing about eating healthy food. So Sophie was eating so many crisps earlier, which was terrible. So I thought I'd replace them with carrot sticks and hummus, which may be a bit better. Would you recommend that, or?
Yeah, but I like crisps as well, so that's okay.
Connor's the bad boy, right? I knew this would turn into a conversation about food. Sarah, Connor, thank you so much for coming along. I hope you enjoy engaging with the chat, and thank you for doing that. We're going to be back in a few minutes after this video break. We're going to take a look at writing our CVs, and I have Lynn and Kathy from the Careers Advisory Service, and they're going to tell us what's hot in CVs right now and what you can do to update yours. So we'll see you very soon.